For sure be a controversial video given the current national debate about police violence. But I want to talk about two recent suspected cases of police violence that resulted in a homicide, and the difference between them, and how do you take skepticism to the situation so that you're not just being a reactionary activist crazy person who's not looking at the situation seriously and is just taking a side and sticking to that side unreasonably. The first I want to do is Sandra Bland. It is, in my opinion, more than likely that Sandra Bland committed suicide in that jail, but she is the hottest thing, you know. One of the things I'm most uncomfortable with in the discussion about police violence is that we always move on to the new thing, whether or not it's reasonable to move on to the new thing. I could talk about Tamir Rice until the day I die, and that case is only about a year old or so, maybe not even. And, you know, Eric Garner, clear-cut case of police violence that results in a homicide. Now, Sandra Bland was in police custody in a cell and was asphyxiated with a trash bag. It is strange that the police have a history of racism. The cop who arrested her, as well as the guy running the jail she was in. That doesn't necessarily mean they murdered her. It is more than likely that she killed herself. And she did have a history of depression, and they said she told them she had considered suicide before. All the people were saying, like, oh, she was in population or something in a jail, or, you know, or she didn't have her own cell or whatever. How the fuck do you know? A lot of you people have never been to jail. No, I haven't. I can't speak to that. But all I can say is there is a lot of reasonable doubt in that case, and more facts need to come out before we start making t-shirts and hashtags. I will say, however, that it's very clear that she was the victim of physical abuse during her arrest, getting slammed around and stuff. And that's enough for me to be angry. Then we want to take this guy, Debose, who was shot very recently during a traffic stop by a university officer. That one has already gathered some controversy around it, where people are kind of trying to do the same thing of, like, do your due research. It was clear that the cop's life was threatened. No. So where some people will be just utterly appalled that I am unwilling to believe that there was an elaborate murder plot for Sandra Bland, but I am more than reasonable, or find it more than reasonable to call Samuel Debose's death a homicide. I don't, you know, that's definitely manslaughter. See, I've seen the footage. And I've seen some people I subscribe to talk about the footage and stick up for the cop. I'm not going to stick up for the cop. So the guy's alone. He doesn't call for backup. He's clearly got a belligerent suspect. Now, I know from experience, from actual real-life experience, because I have been the victim of police harassment, and whether or not you can justifiably call it harassment, or unreasonable or unlawful, I have looked down the barrel of a service weapon on 5 separate occasions in my life, and a lot more than 5 separate service weapons, which may kind of figure into some of these cases where it's a single cop, usually alone, shooting these people. And here's what I want to talk about. The cop does not call for backup. The cop does not stand away from the vehicle, which is, you know, a lethal weapon, and does what many, many cops have done, and I've seen this many, many times in police shooting videos. The cop willingly and purposefully puts himself in mortal danger and then uses that as justification to fire lethal shots at the suspect. A lot of times you'll see on these kinds of traffic stops a cop leap onto the hood of a car, and then when the car starts moving, just empty his clip through the windshield like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. No, what you can't do is jump on the hood of the car and put yourself in lethal danger on purpose and then use that as justification for killing somebody. That's unjustifiable homicide. That should result in criminal charges and criminal convictions when it's on camera and this obvious. I saw a channel I subscribe to, Mundane Mad, say that he looked at the footage, he linked the footage, and said the cop was dragged. No. I watched the footage. I took into account exactly what Mundane Matt explained happened and decided that is not what happened. Mundane Matt says that the cop was dragged 15 feet and then shot the guy. I say the cop shot the guy and then was dragged 15 feet. That's very obviously what happened. The fucking footage is right here on YouTube. You can find it. I will link it. The cop is alone. He establishes that the guy's got an open container of alcohol in the car. The guy will not give him his identification or license and is being belligerent. This is at the point where the cop needs to immediately call for backup, radio what this car is, and that he's, the suspect's probably going to flee, because that's obvious. What does the cop do? He grabs the car. I don't know who teaches cops it's okay to reach into motor vehicles that are running and grab the keys. That needs to never ever happen. Why? Because that is the cop putting himself in mortal danger. Cops do get dragged when this happens. People do drive off when a cop is grabbing at their car and grabbing through windshields. So here is what actually does happen, because we have a body cam right here. The cop reaches in, grabs the keys, and it's very clear that it looks like the guy's about to gun the engine. Already the cop has fucked up. Doesn't ask the guy to turn off the car or anything. The car is still running during this stop, which is fucking ridiculous. And so the cop is reaching for the guy's seatbelt, reaching for the guy's keys. But he's doing so with his left hand. Now, as soon as there is like 1/10 of a second of non-compliance from the suspect, once the cop has already willfully put himself into mortal danger, what happens? You can see gun straight to Debose's head. Now this is all before the car accelerates. And he fires. One shot, bang, point blank, in the head and neck area of Debose. And then as anybody would be when there's a gun being put to your head by a stranger, whether or not that stranger is a fucking police officer is irrelevant, he tries to run for his life. And since the cop has got both fucking arms in his car, he was dragged about 12 feet. And if that somehow flies in a court of law, where people actually sit down and look at this evidence and see clearly that the cop put himself in mortal danger and then fired with lethal force before the car accelerated, how is that not unjustifiable homicide? So where I was with Mundane Matt all the way when he was saying, what the hell are we all freaking out about Sandra Bland? This is a fucking conspiracy theory with nothing other than a bunch of he said, she said, all these supporters who are just so sure that she was murdered with no evidence other than her family said that she wasn't murdered. And then, we have all the cops saying, she hung herself with the trash bag. And we only have really their word, but the thing is, these are cops at a jail cell, and Occam's razor would say, it's possible that she was murdered. It is not likely that she was murdered. That is multiplying the results beyond necessity, and I am going to be following that case with interest further to see, what comes out in court, if anything. I think, again, all stuff like this should end up being investigated externally as well as internally, because I don't have any faith in the virtues of police investigating themselves and saying, we have investigated ourselves and we have determined that we have done nothing wrong. Yeah, fuck off. But it's still reasonable skepticism to find it more likely that Sandra Bland committed suicide. Debose was killed unjustifiably. It was a homicide. It was manslaughter. And it was criminal negligence on behalf of the cop who put himself in danger willfully. If what he was doing is police procedure, a fuckload of people need to be fired. Fuckload of people need to be fired, including him. He needs to be fired no matter what. And he should be charged with manslaughter. Because he put himself in the situation, and it's not even like, oh, he was dragged after putting himself in harm's way, completely stupidly, and then shot to save his life. No, he killed the guy because he thought that the guy had put him in danger. No, he put himself in danger. And before he was dragged, he had already shot the guy. That's all there is to it. Thanks for watching.